I have to tell this story, Pip. I have to tell this story.
Pips?
Pip went for her
Sam?
pap. Pip's pap?
Pips pap.
Pip's pap? Sounds like a beer, doesn't it? Pip's pap blue ribbon. So Pip went
I'll
for
have
her...
a bottle of Pips pap.
Pip's pap, please. With that low fat milk, please. Pip pap. Pip's pap. This is the funniest thing. Now, she was telling me this story last night on the phone, and I was laughing so hard I couldn't even breathe. Because you have to remember, Pip is not an elitist. She is no snob, but she does come from... Originally, she came from small town in the South, and then she lived in New York for years and years and years. So, yes, and she often dances to minuets, evidently. So Pip is used to rather upscale medical facilities.
Yes.
I'm thinking like, the Mayo, that sort of thing. Hold the Mayo. So, this whole show is about small town living. We do the show out of our shack at the farm. We're not in some big fancy studio. And you know me, I drive a 12-year-old Trooper, and I shop at the salvage store for food.
Right.
And you know when I told you the story about when I sent Pip there, and that she was just so freaked out, she was putting hand sanitizer on it as she walked down every aisle. She was just so freaking out because there's water stains in the ceiling.
She went from this
and the linoleum.
to...
So I sent her to this clinic where she knew the clinic where I went to go get my pap tested, and so she went with me to make the appointment, all that stuff. So she went and had hers done yesterday. And then right before she left, because she went straight from the show yesterday to go over there, and I really shouldn't have done this, but I couldn't resist because I know that she has a really low freak-out factor. I mean, you can plant things in Pip's head, and she just loses it. So right when she's getting in her car, leaving from the show yesterday to go over there.
No, you didn't. What'd you say?
I said, listen, Pip, one thing you need to know is in the examining room, they don't have stirrups. And she just looked at me. She just whirled around. She was walking the car. She went, what? And I said, they don't have. She goes, no. Now, are you just... No, really. They have stirrups, right? Okay. And the reason I'm saying this is because when you walked into the room, I didn't think they had stirrups because they were folded down up under the table. And whenever...
fancy ones.
Yeah, I mean, usually I've just seen... probably all tables are that way, where you just pull them up and put them over, but I've never seen a table not without the stirrups being locked into place. So when I went in there to get my pap test, I thought, man, do they not have stirrups? What if they got, like, twine, hanging from the ceiling or something? So I just said that to her because I knew that's what it was going to look like when she went in there. And she said, but if they don't have... she just starts... She said, but if they don't have... Well, how do they do... And I said, well, you know how, like, when you dust a baby's bottom, you just take, both ankles in one hand and you put it... And her face, she just went gray. And she goes, no, are you... And I said, no, it's fine. She goes, no, really, Pam? No, really? And I said, yeah, it's like, it's just like, when you... in rodeos, when you tie up a calf, all three legs, just, it's just like, no, right? And I said, look, I got to go, the phone's ringing. And so she calls me. So she calls me. Oh, God, I have to control myself to tell the story. So she goes there. And it's a perfectly adequate clinic, and it's run, they have a doctor there, they have a nurse practitioner, which I really like because, I just have this thing in my head that a place that has midwives and nurse practitioners are just kind of progressive, and I just kind of dig that idea. So Pip goes in that room, and she's, first of all, she's all freaked out because they asked for a urine sample, and she knew nothing about, she said, what is a midstream? I didn't even know, what are you supposed to, I messed up the sample. And because when you take, when they take a urine sample for urinalysis, they want you to start urinating and then put the cup underneath you so it's a midstream sample.
Right.
Because they test for protein, that sort of thing, in your urine to make sure, your liver and your kidneys functioning all right. And so she didn't get it that right. She didn't get the midstream. She got
There's a sign in there that tells you what to do.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny, Pip, that he would say that? Because I told you that. I said, there's a big damn poster taped on the wall. And she said, no signs. Yes, there is, Pip.
There's like
Pip.
2 of them in every room.
It's in the bathroom.
Even
she
one
was
in
wearing
Spanish.
those magnified glasses again.
It was. She wasn't wearing her freaky glasses. Because it's as big as, it's a giant poster, Pip. It's on the door of the, when you're sitting on it, it's right in front of you. And
Maybe
so
she didn't close the door.
Oh, that's possible.
It has diagrams and everything.
I know. Now, have you been to this one, Anthony? So anyway, here's the funny part. So she's already.
We got our pap test yesterday too.
Oh, that's right. Well, we have to. All right. So anyway, so she's panicking because she feels like she's already messed up the urinalysis. You know, she just feels like she didn't do that right. And Pip's the kind of person that when she starts to lose it physically, she can't get it back. And so they do her regular vitals, they take her blood pressure, and it's through the roof. And her blood pressure is normal. And they said, is your blood pressure always this high? And she said she started sweating so bad. Her heart is pounding because she drank 2 giant mugs of tea before. So she's sitting there, and she's looking at this rather antiquated little clinic, and she's just panicking. She's just panicking. And so she goes in, and she's sitting there on the table, which, of course, has the stirrups folded underneath. And so now she is totally freaking, and she's sweating so badly that she has to grab like 5 tissues and try to mop under her arms, and sweat is running down her chest and under her arms, and she's sitting there and her heart's just going boom, boom.
The doctor's going to come hold her by the ankles.
No, here's the best part. So,
it gets better.
Yes. So she's sitting in her little paper cutouts that you wear as a woman. You know, you have to take your clothes off. They gave you this little kind of paper bolero thing that's open in the front so they can do a breast exam. And then you just sit with a little paper binky over your lap for the rest of the stuff. So she's sitting there, and she is freaking because she doesn't see the stirrups. So she leans over. She leans over, all the way over, to look up underneath the table to see if the stirrup's there. And, of course, that moment the doctor walks in. It looks like Pip is looking at herself. And the doctor, and that room is so small that when you come in the door, you're right there. Pip's head was like right there. And so the nurse practitioner is like, hello. And Pip flew her head up, and she said she's just beat ready. She goes, oh, you know, she's just like Diane Keaton and Annie Hall. I mean, she's just, okay, hi, you know, she goes, are you all right? She goes, yeah, well, I you know, so she lays down on her back, and she's having her breast checked for any kind of lumps or anything, and then she's got the stethoscope, and the nurse practitioner says, now, does your heart always beat? I mean, I can feel, is it normal? She's like, no, she can't even explain. She's like, no, well, I had, you know, and I had a friend that told me, you know, and I had all this tea, and I didn't know about the stirrups and tea, and they just start laughing, you know, and by that time, it's over. And I had told her about them using this new device called the broom to get the... And sure enough, so Pip's laying down, and the nurse practitioner says, now, do you want to see the broom that we use? She's like, no, I don't want to see the broom, because she's thinking it's like a broom.